Welcome back to the Chronicle, the official film podcast for the People's Movies. I'm Paul, I'm your host, as well as the editor of the People's Movies, and welcome back to the podcast and to episode 36. And if you love movies, you're in the right place. As ever, every episode, my co-host is Clotilde Chinichi. And how are you, Clotilde?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm not bad, not bad. Quite a busy week we've had for myself, work-wise and obviously film-wise. What about yourself?
Oh God, I just came back from Italy, so I
Oh,
haven't been watching as many films the past 3 to 4 days.
yeah, well, hopefully you enjoyed your time back home. So for the films this episode, we've got two films. We will be reviewing two films that are now in cinemas. One will be shortly be in Netflix. Depending on what time you listen to this episode, it could be Netflix now. And that is Anora and Emilia Perez. And the first film for this episode, episode 36 of the Chronicle, it will be Sean Baker's Anora, which is currently in UK cinemas and some other cinemas around the world. Clotilda, would you like to tell us a little bit about the film and if you liked it or didn't like it?
Absolutely. So Anora follows the titular character, Anora, who is played by Mikey Madison. She's a sex worker from Brooklyn. While she works at this strip club at the beginning of the film, she meets, is his name? I always forget his name. Is it
Vanya.
Vanya?
Vanya.
Yes, I
Yeah.
So she is Vanya, and he's the son of a very wealthy Russian oligarch. And he's in, at first it seems that he's in the US to just have fun because he's away from his parents. And they start sort of getting into a relationship, also because she speaks Russian. So that's the reason why she approaches him first, and he asks for somebody who speaks Russian.
Yeah.
I don't think this is spoiler because it happens pretty early on in the film, but I didn't know it when I went in. So yeah, there's that. But I think they show in the trailer that
They do,
because
yeah.
he wants to stay in the US, he wants to get married so he could have US citizenship. So initially, it seems like this sort of American dream Cinderella story. She gets to marry this very rich guy essentially and stop working and just enjoy the money. But once his parents learn that he has married this sex worker, they're not very happy. And they decide from Russia to send some of their bodyguards, let's say, in order to stop this marriage and get it annulled. The entire, I want to say, second half of the film is about that sort of struggle for her and how this dream is not as maybe beautiful as she would have hoped. And I really liked it. I saw it. I think there's been a lot of hype around Anora
Yeah.
in the last like 4 to 5 months, and I was lucky enough to see it in Cannes, so before like anyone ever said anything about the film really. And I think that's why I also liked it. I think if I had seen it with all the hype, maybe I would have been a bit disappointed. Like I heard a lot of people say it's the best film of the year or best performance of the year. I think the performance is really good, but I don't necessarily think it's like the best of the year. Me personally. So I think seeing it without like knowing anything about it or having any expectation was really good for me. But yes, I did like it. I tend to like Sean Baker as well, so I think if you like his films, it's very much in his style. If you've seen other stuff like Conjuring, you would know that he's worked um and explored the topic of sex work before, so that's not something new to him. At the same time, I do think it's probably might be one of his best films. It really feels like a director who knows what he wants and is also sort of like pushing the boundaries in that sense. It feels like he's done like his sort of traditional films, and now he's kind of doing more and better, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I do like I really liked it. I didn't love it, I think, as much as everyone else. I think there's like the final scene doesn't really I didn't really like it as much. I feel like it was quite predictable for me. Like halfway through I knew that this was gonna be the last scene, basically, and I wish it surprised me a little bit more. But also I just felt like it didn't really show her character development as much as I would have liked. I think she goes through like a lot in this film, obviously, and I think she grows as a person. And I wish the sort of like final act would really show that a bit more. I think you can understand that she's changed, but it feels like the film doesn't focus on that as much as I would have wanted it to. I think it focused on giving her like a sort of happy ending, so to speak, or getting her what she'd always wanted. Like, I don't want to give away too much,
Yeah.
but I wish the film would have focused more on like showing how much she's grown as a character, rather than what relationship she's in, basically. So that's sort of like a minus point for me, because I could always see that it was gonna lead to that, and I was hoping to be wrong, because it would have been, I think, more exciting if they just sort of went in another direction that maybe was like less clean and less like perfect ending, but maybe leaving things a bit more open ended, I think would have been more exciting for me to see. But I think obviously the performances are amazing. I know everybody's praising her performance, and rightfully so. She's absolutely great. But at the same time, I think we should also like praise the supporting cast. I think especially for me, Europe Orison as Igor, and I think it's Karen Karakulian as Taurus. They're
Yes.
so good. For me, they really make the second half of the film. I think their comedy is fantastic, and the way they act opposite each other is also really good. They sort of keep it very snappy. I think what I love the most about it is how it feels very quick, especially in the second half. I think it's a film that always keeps you like guessing, and there's always turns, there's always something happening. And yeah, I really like that pacing, and I think a lot of it is because of the actors. They're just so good together, and they're able to both go into comedy, but also deal with much serious stuff. And I think with all this praise for the acting, we really should highlight them as well. I think it's like, for me, it's the first time I see them in a film. I'm sure they've done other stuff, but maybe it's not one of the first times they're in a film like this stage, especially abroad. I think they're so good. And I'm very glad to see that. But I overall like really liked it. I think I didn't maybe love it as much as everyone. And I'm also happy that it won the Palme d'Or. I think out of the films at Cannes, it was definitely one of my favorites. It's probably not my favorite, but very likely one of the best ones. And it's definitely a very good candidate for like Best Picture, Best Actor. There's a lot of, I think, attention that it will get from award season, which is very exciting. I don't think Sean Baker has ever won an Oscar, but correct me if I'm wrong,
I
which
don't
it
think
would be,
so.
I think it would be cool to see him nominated. I think he's a great filmmaker, and cinematography and directing in Anora is a testament to that. There's some shots that are just so beautiful, and it's always a pleasure to see that, I think.
Yeah, I'm virtually like you. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy
Good.
it as much as as a lot of the folks saying. When I started the People's Movies, I started it as a platform for myself to give my views, and but I think, like for example, someone loved a film and I actually hated it. This was my chance to show right down
Yeah.
and share my views, and vice versa. I actually, after I watched Anora, I posted something somewhere in Twitter. It caused a little bit of ruckus. Not a massive ruckus, because I said I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I hate. So that's why I started the People's Movies, and I say to every new writer, I says, even if I don't like it or I love it, you hated it, every review is respected. The main review we do have on the website at thepeoplesmovies.com is a writer who really loved the movie, and I totally respect that. But this is why I started the website. We're sharing views. The reviews are so diverse, and no one, regardless if they hated it or loved it, we all go on, come and go. We love film. Sometimes we hate the films. So that is Anora. Totally agree. It is a Cinderella type story, but obviously, like Cinderella seen as a pure fantasy. I think this is a Cinderella for the real world, where it is real situations. Where
Hmm.
that type of thing. Because I think Sean Baker's been very, very good. He does know how to tap into the society, the bit of a society who are sort of living on the edge of, some people might call normality. Some people might call them outcasts. They're living those, what's it called them, the gig economy type jobs. They're just living off hour by hour with the struggle to pay their rent, get the best food on the table, pay university, whatever reason they're doing it for. And throughout his films, he's shown that. I'm not the biggest fan. I like Sean Baker's films. Tangerine is probably one of my favourites.
Me
I
too.
Yeah, I reviewed it last year or the year before, I can't remember, because it get released in Second Sight Films. It's on the main website. Once again, shows that obviously was about two transgender prostitutes or sex workers. And that's how I think he knows how to dig into it. Forgive me, I don't know the lady's name, but I was listening to a review where they mentioned the name. I was trying to find that name up, try and get the name in time for this podcast. Unfortunately, I didn't. I think he used this lady who actually worked in the sex industry, be it as a dancer, sex worker, whatever, or on screen. To give a sort of give it an authentic feel to it, as in the side of the sort of sex industry, and you can see that throughout all his films, through Tangerine to, was it Red Rocket was his last one there as well, and I don't know the Florida Project had a sex worker in it. I haven't actually seen that one. I liked how he gets it really authentic, and I totally agree. I think Annie, or Anora, she's obviously the name of the film, Mikey Madison. I think it would have been good if we saw a little bit of her life outside the club, the strip club she worked in Manhattan before
Yeah.
she met Vanya, so you can get to see her side, how she's struggling, and how her life is. I mean, you get to see her. The film opens up, or at the club, or working away. You get to see how she works throughout the club, how far she has to go. Sorry, that sounds a bit crude, but as in how far she goes in her job, and that, and then you just see her travelling home in the train, absolute knackered, and then her sister, which we didn't know it was her sister until later on in the film. She mentions that was her sister. Maybe get to see the life around there, maybe a wee bit of her sister's life, to sort of see how much they're struggling and how much our meeting Vanya was a god, if you like to say, a godsend to her at the time. But obviously, as the film progresses, it becomes a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, you're right. The two young leads, they are fantastic. They weren't something spectacular, but rightly so. I think they should be in especially Mikey Madison, and I think it was Sean Eydelshteyn. I think it's the young boy played. Sorry, Mark Eydelshteyn, who plays Vanya. The two of them were very good.
Yeah.
And people, the comedy was good. You're totally right. Toros and his two stooges. No, they actually remind me. I don't know if it was because it was set in New York. If you didn't know they were Russian, they were acting like the sort of stooges we see in an Italian mafia film.
Yeah.
Like Mark Scorsese. I mean, Torres especially, because he was acting like somebody, who would probably walk into a Scorsese film, or a Tarantino film. Torres it reminded me a little bit about him, but he sort of sneaks into sort of Goodfellas type comedy, if dark humour. See the scene you were talking about, the predictable scene, was that, without giving much away, I will say, folks, as I'll say again, and I've said episodes, sometimes the odd spoiler might come out, sometimes we've got to say it. Apologies if it spills in. Was that the scene with Boris you're talking about, without saying much more? Yeah, that's... I said the exact same thing. I'm not spoiling in. They do get married, and it does say in the trailer, we're going to get this annulled. We're going to get this marriage annulled. I thought they get to Vegas, and then it's annulled, and they're coming back. To me, I was like, is this the film ending? But I wasn't expecting it to go on for another 30, 40 minutes. I think the film was too long. I think this is a film...
Yeah, I also felt like it was a bit long. I agree.
Yeah, I think if it was under 2 hours, I probably have much more appreciation for it. The second half of the film, sort of after the annulation, it loses its steam. I start looking at my watch or my mobile, which you shouldn't do in the cinema, ladies and gents. Should never do that. And by that point, I was just, come on, hurry up. What I will say is, I watched in the public cinema. A lot of people were laughing a lot, because at the beginning of the film, when Vanya starts inviting Annie and Anora to his house, or his mansion, it's absolutely massive. It's that big, it actually has a lift in it, that there's a lot of sex, drugs and rock and roll, and the people were laughing hilarious at that. But there was an odd funny bit in there, but to a point, like they were watching an out-and-out comedy. And Anora is not a comedy, it is a drama which has comedic parts in it. So before anyone starts shouting, no, it is a comedy, it's a drama with comedic parts in it. As you said, it's when Toros arrives into his stooges, that's when the proper comedy arrives. I mean, when we were trying to get Annie stopping her for doing what she was wanting to do, that was quite hilarious. And it was at that point, the holding scene with Boris. That's when I clicked what the ending was going to be. Is that roughly the same?
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the film? And if you want to sort of round up with your sort of rating.
I think there's a lot to like. I do think there's sort of hype around it. Now there's been through a few festivals. I think it was in Cannes, maybe Telluride. It was for sure in London and maybe New York as well. I
Yeah.
think the hype around it, it's just come out in the UK, so I think the general public hasn't seen it yet. Unfortunately, I do think it might hurt the film. I think it's always the case when there's so much hype that inevitably you have this picture in your head, and inevitably I think you might be a little bit disappointed because if
Yeah.
everybody's telling you it's the greatest movie ever, and then you don't agree, you have this sort of set of expectations. I wish, it wasn't the case in the sense that I think you enjoy it more if you don't have any sort of idea of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about that. It's a whole sort of like question about expectations and going into a film like that. Overall, I think it's a good film. I don't necessarily think it's his best, nor I think it's the best film of the year, but I did enjoy it. I think it's a new story, and that's something that I will always sort of appreciate because I think there's so many remakes now. Gladiator just coming out next week,
Yes.
2023. Like, there's so many sequels, there's so many remakes, and it's just very refreshing to see a new story, a story that shines a light on the real, dangers of sex work, and especially by a filmmaker who cares so much, as we know Sean Baker does. I think
Yes.
it's really important. So I'm glad to see that. Overall, I give it 4 stars.
My rating's just slightly lower. I think I'm giving it 3 stars. I even in TV shows, if I'm going to watch a TV show, I need to get into it before the hype starts.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a lot of people hate this show and it is now stopped. I get into The Walking Dead when The Walking Dead started. I think it's just because I love horror and that's what probably caught me. And then obviously as it gradually went, the hype got up. Like people told me things like Breaking Bad and that. Oh, you need to watch this. This is fantastic. I watched 3 seasons and I'm like, that's all right. I get into it. I get asked to watch that during the hype. Anora does have a lot of hype. Yep, I'm not saying people won't enjoy it because we all see film a different way. Some people might love it, might think it is the best movie of the year. Unfortunately, I don't. I don't hate it. I think it's just ran it. It's too long a film. As you said, it's not Sean Baker's best film. I think his best film is probably Tangerine. And that was probably his most independent, most amateur film. But when I mean amateur, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It was just the way it was all set up because it was filmed in an iPhone, I think.
Yeah.
I still think, however, with all the hype, he's probably his best chance of winning some Oscar glory for one of his films. Or any awards. They're definitely going to be in for the award season. As in what and who will win the awards with this film, I think they will win the awards. As you said, there was a lot of gorgeous visual aesthetics here. I agree with you. So maybe one of the craft awards like the cinematography, they might be up for that.
Yeah.
But overall, it was great to see, refreshing as you said, to see a film that's not a remake or a reboot or a long-awaited sequel. He continues his theme of the sort of sex work, the sex industry. Overall, it's sort of ran out of steam. So once again, 3 stars. So yeah, you have it, folks. That's Anora. We give it 3 and 4 star. And the final review for episode 36 of the Chronicle is Emilia Perez, which is currently in some UK cinemas, but will be streaming on Netflix very, very shortly. So this film is directed by Jacques Audiard, and the film did create a big buzz, and I think if you back me up in this, Clotilde, a big buzz. It's Will Premier back at Cannes. Would that be correct?
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. And as I said, it's currently in UK cinemas and soon to be on Netflix. So this stars Zoe Saldana. She is Rita Mora Castro, and she's an overworked lawyer who's based in Mexico City. She's a very honest one, but she's not fully appreciated by her boss and the dedication she actually gives to the job. I think you can say, Clotilde, her boss is a bit corrupt. The opening scene, you see her reluctantly doing the dirty work for her boss at the start of the film when we see her helping a man who may or may not killed his wife. So she just wants to be happy, even be her own boss, do a better job, and then she gets an unexpected call that may open a door to that happiness. And that door happens after she's gagged and taken, sitting in front of Manitas Del Monte, who is played by, forgive me, it's Carla Sofia
Yeah.
Gascon, who is Manitas Del Monte, a notorious cartel kingpin who gives Rita a proposition to find him the best surgeon to help him transition from a man into a woman. And if Rita does that, she will be rewarded with millions of dollars. So Emilia Perez, a wee bit like the last film that we just reviewed, Anora. I didn't enjoy it as much as the Buzz. Same again, I didn't hate it. I just didn't jump on board with the sort of buzz that came in the movie. I will say the difference between Anora and Emilia Perez. The Emilia Perez didn't have the same hype and buzz as Anora, but it was there. It is a very fascinating sort of story where it's a transgender drugs cartel boss. And it is inspired, I believe it's inspired by Boris Razon's 2018 book called EQT, which I believe in French and English that's listen. I might be wrong. And the one thing about is Odia Clotilde, I think he enjoys doing that film where it's a wee bit something extra, not adding into the genre stories. Well, obviously he made Rust and Bone, which was a bit like a film around Orca Wales, if you like to say it. And then the Sisters Brothers, which I haven't seen, but it's a western comedy, and A Prophet is probably his biggest, most successful. Did he win an Oscar for A Prophet? I think he did actually. He did win BAFTAs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
yeah, that's his sort of gritty prison drama. And then there was Deepan, which was like a refugee drama, which had a bit of a supernatural tinge. What I liked about this film, it's how organic the songs. This is a musical crime drama, melodrama. It's a bit of everything in this crime thriller as well. How organic the songs and the dance sort of came in. It actually felt you could actually feel the passion and the emotion of the songs. Whereas, like for example, like Joker, Folie à Deux, which the songs they don't feel part of they feel like they're naturally part of the film. Personally, I think with that film, that's a fan. I think it's more of a fantasy because we're living inside Arthur's mind. Where Emilia Perez is truly a musical, and what I also liked about it is they actually use real actors, not like professional singer, dancers, actresses, that type of thing. And that's probably where the thing it felt really good because you could hear throughout it, and a bit like Joker, Folie à Deux, where the actors are not always the best of singers. You see that with the surgeon when Rita goes to Israel to meet the surgeon. One thing, I'm off kilter here. Julie Folie à Deux, someone said to me the singing was terrible, especially what do you call it, Lady Gaga. But if I remember rightly, Lady Gaga said in an interview she had to train herself not to sing great because obviously she can sing, and so can Joaquin Phoenix. So that's a lot of people are not picking up on. Back to our film. No, it's a film I think obviously it's about finding your identity, finding your happiness, but also not giving too much away. I think it's all about redemption. It's about three women in it because there's obviously Rita, Amelia, and Jessie, who is played by, I forget her name, Selena Gomez. It's all about the three of them finding happiness. And in the story, so what happens is, also in the story, is Rita did find that surgeon. And this is the one point, I think, when she's doing her research to find the surgeons, where the singing I think they should have not have sang. It's a bit where she's trying to find that surgeon, and they start singing about male and female body parts, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think that might get a little bit, oh, that's a little bit, nah, that's not right. That could be a little disrespectful to someone who may be transitioning. Then again, someone can maybe see the funny side of it, which a lot of people did as well. I thought it was just a little bit cheeky. Once again, as I said, I was looking at the clock. I was looking at my mobile phone again, which I said in the previous review, I shouldn't be looking at it. It was a film I felt it dragged, and it was a bit messy. I think it was a bit clunky as well, where it was a bit all over the place, and where it was opening a bit like I said in a previous review at Venom, it opened up a lot of channels, a lot of stories, but it never continued them or expanded on those stories as well, where the setting up of how Manitas becomes Emilia Perez, that's the name that Manitas takes, obviously the titular name of the film. Manitas had two kids, and Selena Gomez, Jessie was his character, was his wife. So obviously what they done was set up a story where the kids and Jessie went to Switzerland. But however, the three women's stories are interconnect again. It's Shane, Rita bringing the kids back to now Amelia, and she was just calling herself Auntie Amelia, Manitez's sister. I'm not going to talk much more about this, Clotilda. I'll let you get a chance. What did you think of the film?
It's good. I like it. I felt like it was quite a success in Cannes. I didn't get to see it then,
Yeah,
but I felt like in at the London Film Festival where it was also showed, everyone hated it. Like that's the sort of impression I got,
yeah,
and especially after Cannes, I just heard negative reviews. But I liked it. I think it's quite interesting actually because like everyone who knows me, who watched the film before me, told me that I was gonna like it, and they were all right. I think so. Musical elements to me are just so much fun. I think like really sometimes we think that musicals only have musical numbers that are like very serious, like on Les Miserables or whatever. But I think musicals can be fun. Like you can have
yeah,
musical numbers like in this. I'm not saying they're like perfect musical numbers. I think they have their faults and they could be like integrated better in the story, but you can have musical numbers that both show the character's interiority, which is what music does in a musical, but that also have like catchy music and are there for the audience to have fun. I think both ideas exist at the same time. I also think the like sort of main performances were really good, especially Zoe Saldana. I
yes,
mean, she's always been a great actress. I've always admired her, but I think this character is so layered and she does a really good job at that, even though there's not so much that we know about her, I think, but she makes her such a well-rounded character with so much depth. I really liked her. I think maybe Selena Gomez is the weakest one,
yeah,
out of all of them. I still really enjoyed her character. I think some moments in her performance are really good. So I understand why they sort of got the award in Cannes as an ensemble cast. But I think she struggled a little bit more with the Spanish. I don't know if that was my impression, but that's what I got. And I think I understand there's a whole sort of commentary and criticism over how he uses the transition plot essentially as a plot device, as a redemption arc. And I understand how that is problematic. I don't think I'm the best person to speak on it. I actually read a really interesting article about it by a trans writer, and it's on Little White Lies, just because I think those voices should be
yeah,
amplified. I don't think it's my place to essentially debate whether or not it's a good representation of a trans character. So I think that needs to be discussed and heard more than anything. But I think if we leave that aside, because I don't think I'm the best person to speak on it, I do think I had fun with the film. There's a lot of it that I think is not meant to be taken seriously. I think we see that with the musical number you mentioned.
yeah,
And obviously, it's a very, very serious issue. It's a very serious story. But I think the film sort of encourages us to take some of it a bit more lightly. And that was my impression anyway, because it's a film that does sort of everything. Like it's trying to be a musical and an action film and
Yeah,
also a story and like this and that. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it was very hard to do it well. I think it has some really good moments. I think the action is very well done, especially in the last act. Although I do agree that it feels a bit long. Like there's a bit at the end where I thought it was dragging as well. But I think the action itself is done well. And like I said, the acting is amazing. I think for me, I really enjoyed the musical elements because they made it a bit different for me. Like it's not your usual action film and it's not your usual like drug cartel movie because it does this sort of like extra element. So I really enjoyed that. I also believe it's the French entry for the Oscars,
I
which
think
is
so.
gonna be yes, that's quite I think that's exciting.
Yeah,
So I actually quite liked it. I think I liked it more than most
yeah,
people, but I think it's a film that I think you have to take in a and if you don't like musicals, that's probably not the film for you because there is singing in it. And I think if you're someone that doesn't like musical or doesn't really understand why characters break into song, then that's not the film. I think if you're willing to sort of suspend belief and like believe that these characters are actually gonna start singing randomly during a speech that somebody else is making and everybody joins them and knows the choreography. Like if you're willing to accept that and believe in the world of the musical where these things happen, then it's great. But I understand that there is maybe a little bit of a barrier with the genre. But in terms of the genre, I think it does what musicals do in this sense. Like all of the things that it's assuming, like oh the characters know the choreography and the song, like that's just peak musical right there. That's what musicals do, I think. Um, and I think I don't think there's been a lot of musicals recently, which is, changing very soon. There's Wicked
yeah.
and like you said, Joker 2, and I think it's coming back. But I think as a genre, musical has been sort of pushed back in Hollywood. There seems to be not as many,
No.
and I'm just happy to see it again. I love musical as a genre, and it's good to see it sort of back. And I hope performing well. We'll see how Emilia Perez is going to do, but I think films like Wicked, will do well at the box office. I do think I think this is going straight to Netflix, isn't it? I do think that's a bit of a shame because
Yeah,
I saw it on the big screen. I assume you saw it on the big screen as well. I think it's an experience to be seen on the big screen. There's a lot of visuals that I think were very powerful. I'm not sure how they will translate on Netflix. I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it if I saw it on Netflix. I think the communal experience was also quite fun, whether people liked it or not. I think being in a cinema and sort of witnessing this kind of madness together is quite powerful. I'm not. I think on Netflix is the kind of thing that people might just sort of shut off after the first musical
yeah.
moment, which is why I think it's a shame. I'm not 100% sure it's going straight to Netflix, but I would hope it has a bit of a theatrical run, especially because it might like it's gonna be a player at the award during award season, at least in the international feature film category. So, shame.
Yeah, I watched it at the Glasgow Film Theatre, which is the
Mhm.
which is the most famous of the art house cinemas, not just in Glasgow but also in Scotland, next to the Film House in Edinburgh, and it's a bit of an institution. I watched it, and it was actually on the smaller screen, as you said, big screen would have been look great. Which is a bit of listening to that, it was a bit of a shame. Don't get me wrong, the only way to describe screen free, it's only about 50 seats, and it's probably like like these old fashioned rooms where you maybe see Martin Scorsese sitting there and watching his film when he's editing, go right, take that bit out, that bit out, that like one of those sort of little editing rooms. That's what it reminded me of. And believe it or not, that cinema screen was used as an editing room by a director.
Really? That's
Yeah,
so
it was the film that came out about 7 8 years ago with Chris Pine and Ben Foster, the one they were the robbers, the thieves. and it was Jeff Bridges that was chasing him. It was done by an English-Scottish filmmaker, who actually lives in Glasgow, and it was him, the guy who created Yellowstone. Forget the guy's name. Forgive me, you should be knowing these names, film folks. They were all sitting there and watching this film, and watching that was their goal. Because the reason I know that was I was working that day, and I was to look after that screen, because I used to work at the Glasgow Film Theatre for 6 years, and I was told by the manager, right, there's a private screening in there at the moment. It's actually a film director watching the film. Oh, it came out, and they started speaking to me and went, yeah, how would it go? And I told them, I'm about to go in and actually look after this screen. And it was them. I'll try and remember them for the next episode. Name of the film. Forgive me, folks, who are listening to this. So yeah, as you said, I think the acting great, excellent for all of the cast. However, as we sort of pointed out, I don't know if there was enough in certain characters, especially Selena Gomez's character, to actually care enough about a character. You know, how would I describe a character? She came across a little bit, like if you heard Clotilde of the description of a footballer's wife and girlfriend, a wag. Have you heard of that description?
Not really.
It's basically it's quite discriminatory. Where it's just that the women are only there for the guy's money type thing, and the fame it comes with. I get that impression with Jesse, which is here because this is a big drug kingpin. He's got all the money. I'm going to be protected here, and blah blah blah. She came across a little bit like that type of thing. I think her character was very, very underused, and I really did like Gascon as Emilia Perez. Gascon is a trans woman actor, Carlos Ferguson, and I thought she was really good, and she actually sort of gave a bit of humanity when she became Emilia character, rather than sort of.
I was gonna say, I think you're right. I think that's why I felt like maybe her performance was a bit weak, is also because I think realistically she was given a lot less screen time than the other two, and her character is so interesting as well. So it's a shame.
Exactly. Saldana, it was good to see her actually playing a real character rather than some James Cameron CGI character or a Marvel character painted in green. So it was good to actually see her show her acting without any prosthetics or computer screens in front of her. I liked also how, see, when we see her a lot, as a lawyer, solicitor, she never wore any makeup, and I liked that, how she was so natural, that type of thing. Made her a real character, because I think sometimes with a lot of Hollywood movies, and any movies in general, the actors are all dolled up in makeup and that, and they're meant to be some sort of down and out, down in a luck character, but they're dolled up makeup like they've got $1 million to waste on them sometimes when they're playing some down and out character. I liked that sort of sense. I think that she was very, very natural. Do you wonder if Emilia Perez actually focused, because I think Rita is sort of more the main character at times. Do you think Emilia Perez would have been a better or worse movie if it was truly maybe focused on Emilia? Maybe seen a little bit of as Emilia as Manitas to show the struggles and a build up of the operation to become Emilia. And maybe would it be a better prospect? I'm wondering
I think it would have been just a very different film. Like in that case, I'm not sure it would have worked as a musical, and I think it would have been a sort of more, I don't know, maybe introspective film, less kind of action or showy. It's interesting because the film is called Emilia Perez. You would think it's mostly on her, but I do agree that if I had to pick the main character, I think it would be Rita. Like she's sort of like guiding us through it. She's the person we follow the most, really.
Yeah, she's a bit like the narrator in a way in the story.
And I don't know, I feel like Zoe Saldana is so good in it that I can't imagine like a different film in that sense. I am glad she's having this main role, and the way she worked on it, I think that's why it's hard for me to imagine a different film, because I think she's so good in it. I would not want to sort of cut her screen time or see less of her character, because she made such a big impression on me.
Clotilde, your sort of final thoughts and what sort of rating would you give Emilia Perez?
I think Emilia Perez is the film that has to be talked about because, like I said, it has some significant issues in terms of like trans representation, which opens a whole like bigger, debate on trans characters on screen and who gets to write them and all of this. At the same time, I do think people can enjoy like a film that also knows how to have fun. I don't think everything has to be 100% serious, and that's why I really like the musical numbers in it, because they really felt like a breath of fresh air. Maybe it's because I had I saw it at the end of the London Film Festival, and maybe it's because I saw so many like heavier films in terms of how they treat the subject matter, that it was like finally something a little less. I mean, it's very dramatic still, and it's very heavy topics, but just sort of dealt with in a different way. So I really appreciate the sort of innovation there and the way it blends genres. I think it's very ambitious. Whether it succeeds or not, I think it depends on who's watching it. For me, I think it did. Like overall, I think it did work. Because I did end up giving it a 4 out of 5. So
Yeah, I'm like the previous film we reviewed. I'm giving it 3 stars. I think the buzz it came with it deflated the film a bit. It was a bit of a missed opportunity in certain things. However, for anyone who, oh no, it's a transgender character, it's all about. I'll say one thing: they don't throw the transgender side of the transition side of things in your face. If anyone's worried about that, they don't push it in your face. You just say it's someone who wants to change gender, and then you see a
okay.
little build up of the story. So for anyone who who doesn't maybe like who likes to call themselves anti woke, this is not a woke film. This is not a woke film at all. It's, as you said, it brings up a lot of issues, a lot of things that is very pivotal at this point of society at the moment. It tries to cover them in a certain way, and it tries to show it's all about identity, finding yourself. I like that. However, great acting, a lot of excellent acting for the main characters in there. However, it did miss the opportunity. So there you have it, folks. We give it 3 and 4 stars for Emilia Perez. And that's your wrap, folks, of the Chronicle episode 36. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Clotilde, for joining us. Anora is in UK cinemas. Thank you very much for Universal Pictures for letting us see this. Emilia Perez might still be in UK and Irish cinemas, but will be on Netflix from the 13th of November. Clotilde, would you like to share the listeners where they can find you on social media?
Yes, I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Films with Chloe, and on Instagram at The Person Being Chloe. That's it.
So for ourselves at Facebook, it's at The People's Movies. At X and Twitter, it's at The People's Movie. Instagram, it's at The People's Movies. You can actually also find us on Pinterest at TPM_UK and YouTube at The People Movies 1, where a lot of the episodes will end up actually over there on, excuse me, on YouTube. You can also find the Chronicle on many of the popular download websites such as Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, YouTube, Castbox, Listen Notes to name a few. As in when the next episodes will be out, the main episode, take 2. Why not sign up for the email newsletter, which you can find the link over at The People's Movies. As I said, sometimes we will continue the chat at the Chronicle Take 2. You'll find it on social media and also obviously at The People's Movies. The Chronicle and The People's Movies, we are long running, but we are a small independent sites. Please do share this episode and other future episodes of the podcast on social media with your friends and family. And if you're listening through one of the popular podcast websites that I mentioned, please do review us, please do rate us. That helps people find us on the internet. If you do want to support us, you can support us at Buy Me a Coffee or via PayPal. The links are obviously over at the website. Clotilde, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. And to you, the listeners, thank you very much. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.